Back in 2004, there was a collectible card game. Matter of fact, there were a lot of collectible card games. But this particular one by Upper Deck was called the Versus system, and it was a Marvel Versus system. It was a pretty popular game. It lasted for a couple of years and then kind of mysteriously vanished. But here it is, 2014, 10 years later, and they've redone the game, changed some rules, redid the cards, and it's looking like it's a pretty good game. And I like some of the changes. So let's take a look at it, and we'll talk about the Versus system by Upper Deck. So here I got a little bit of a layout here, so I'm just going to kind of just go over some of the changes, and then I'm going to lay out the cards and show you how things kind of work here. But first of all, if you played this game, if you played the original game, you're going to find that there's a couple of things that are different. Okay? Wounds happen instead of endurance. Characters have new stats called health. When a character gets stunned, instead of taking stun or breakthrough damage, it gains a wound. If it takes too many wounds, it gets KO'd and removed from the game. Now in each game, there's a main character. And I'm going to show you one of those cards. If you look at this card here, in the upper left hand corner, there is an L2. That's, actually let me show you this one. This is the L1, so I can explain the L2 as well. The L1 is a level 1 main character. Okay, if this guy dies, you lose the game, and he comes out at no cost at the beginning of the game. Now if you've never played this game, there's two rows that you can play. If you have played the game before, you know that there's two rows. You can have a row with a back, okay, put cards in the back, or you can put cards up front. Your front cards do melee, your back cards can shoot, and I'll show you what the shooting symbol is. But this guy here, he can be placed in either row. If he dies, you lose the game, like I said. If you meet the level up condition, he gets more powerful and you bring out the level 2 card. And as you can see, he has different abilities. We'll explain those abilities a little bit. You see on this card he's a 5/7, but his first card he's a 2/5. So let's just put him out there right now. We're going to put him in the back row, and I'll explain things a little bit more as we go on. But let's continue on with some of the changes. Simpler rows and faster formations. In the original game, you would place some characters in your front row and some in your back row and decide who was protecting whom. In this new game, all that matters is who's in front and who's in back. If there's anyone in front, then the characters in the back are protected. So you can have one guy in front and then a row of different guys. This guy has to be hit first in melee, and that they're protected by this particular guy and cannot be attacked in the back row unless somebody has a special ability that does so differently. Individual turns. Each player takes their own turn, which is also speed things up. Your opponent can only play cards on your turn during combat, and only if the card says so. So if you go to play ability during combat, your opponent can counteract. Other new stuff. You'll notice other differences as you learn and play the new game. Some rules might be changed, like how shooting characters are now more dangerous, and some might be how the game feels, like how team attacks are more important. Team attacks are real important because everything goes off. The way you can team attack is if you have a symbol, like if we have other cards that are Avengers, they can perform a team attack. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, so let me kind of explain what happens here. You start with 7 cards, and we're going to take 7 cards out off the top of our deck here. Anybody that is not a main character is called a supporting character. 3, 6, 7. Okay. Let's take a look at our hand here. Well, we're going to take one card and we're going to take a look here. Right here is the cost. To play this card, you have to play one resource. If you notice, I've laid out some cards already. When you start the game, you start with no resources. You have to play one card from your hand. It could be any card that you want, and you can place it face down. If it is not a location, if it is not a location card. Now, location cards have special symbols on the bottom. These symbols activate certain abilities that will be on your character, support cards. So say we had this symbol out like so. If we wanted to use this and he was out front and use that particular ability, we can turn this card over, still use it as a resource, but know that we've used this ability to we use this symbol to activate that symbol, which activates the ability. Like I said, there were 2 rows. You can decide on how to put them out in the rows once you pay the cost. Every turn you're allowed to put one card down here, and as it builds, you can bring out more powerful cards, such as Captain America, who's a 4/4. The game is broken up in the turn sequences. There's your draw phase, your recovery phase, so anytime you've used somebody to attack or if they've been hit, you can untap them and ready them. Your build phase, that's when you would use resources to bring cards out of your hand. And then finally, the main phase. That's where you would do your combat. Now, combat's fairly simple. We have Mystique here, and she's a 2/4. And let's say she's fighting Captain America. Okay? Now, if the Captain decides to attack her in a melee combat, he would tap, and his 2 would go against her 4, and her 2 would go against her attacking 2 would go against his defensive 5. His attacking of 2 would go against her defensive 4. It would be a push, and nobody would be hurt or wounded. But let's say that he had support up front here. Let's say he had another supporting Captain America card in his deck, which is a 4/4. And he decided to attack with both. Because they're Avengers, they can team attack. So their 6 beats their 4, but you can only assign the 2 to one character. This is where team attacks are important. So say it was a lesser character, like Ant-Man, who's 2 and 2, and he was part of this attack. And let's just say we were fighting the Juggernaut. There we go. The Juggernaut, who is an 8/5, he would get to assign his 8 someplace. Okay? So, if he decides to assign his 8 to Captain America would take a wound. He would not be out of the game, he would just be stunned for that turn and cannot be attacked again. If he takes 5 wounds, he's out of the game, and since this is the main character, he would be out of the game. These other cards, if you decided to use that against the 8 against, say, Ant-Man, who's only a 2/2, he only takes 1 wound and would be removed from the game. In turn, the 4, 2, and 2 attack of the teammates is enough to take out the Juggernaut, who is an 8/5. So the Juggernaut, who has 2 wounds, would take a wound and would not be able, and would be tapped for that turn. Any abilities or boosts that he had, if he had any +1 or -1 counters, would be removed, and then at the refresh stage they would be able to untap him, and with one more wound, if they were able to do one more wound to him, they would be able to remove Juggernaut from the game. I'm sorry you didn't see that. The game also has what they call plot twists. Plot twists can be played during combat because they have this symbol that says during combat. Choose an attacker to get plus no attack but +5 defense this combat. So you would be able to play this card on, say, Ant-Man. So he would be a 2/7. Still wouldn't be enough to prevent the damage from the Juggernaut, but you know, depending on who he was attacking and who was getting attacked, say it was this Captain America who's a 4/4 with only one wound, it would make him a 4/9, which would deflect and nothing would happen on that particular attack to Captain America. In response, when you play a card, your opponent can also play a card from his hand, and you keep on going until you both pass. Once you both pass, then you would resolve the combat. So pretty much it seems like a pretty balanced game. You get everything that you need in the sets. There's some great cards in here, as you can see. Let's take a look at some of them. Like you could play as Loki. Okay, and they actually have a villains deck. You have Dormammu. And you can tell he's a 6/7. There's Loki. Magneto, Mandarin, the Abomination, Ultron, who's a 3/1. You think he would be better than that? Sabretooth, Red Skull, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Ronan, and tons of cards. Thanos, you could play as Thanos even. On the hero side, there's pretty much everybody. You have Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a whole set for them. They have all Spider-Man's characters, Thor, and some of Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Luke Cage, Spider-Man, Hawkeye, Nova, my favorite personally, and tons of different cards to develop. And the best thing about making the starter decks is that you could play with the starter deck and play with a different main character. Keep the supporting characters the same, but maybe try Iron Man or the Hulk or somebody. The only bummer about the game is you don't get a lot of main characters in there, and that's the only thing I kind of didn't like about it. It seems like it's a pretty good game. I plan on doing a playthrough with the boy this weekend, and we'll see how it plays out. I think I'll tape it, and that way you can get a real good look at the game. I just kind of wanted to give you a quick run through about it and see if this helps in any ways or explains anything, and talk about some of the changes that were in there. The main thing is that you have to, one other thing I kind of forgot was that to tell you that you have to build a deck of 60 cards. The set comes with over 400 cards, and it looks like they give you a box with plenty of space, so it looks like they plan on supporting this for a while. That's an awful big box to give you if they didn't plan on supporting it. And you can see you get a ton more cards. You get all the X-Men. You can play as Wolverine as a main character. Really interesting system. I like what they did with it. I was kind of shocked. I kind of bought it just for historical reasons, but it looks like something I want to kind of play and try out and mess around with the kids and see how we like it, and maybe buy some more sets. We'll see how it goes. Well, that's it for today. We got plenty of stuff coming all weekend. And thanks for watching this. Thanks for listening to my horrible explanation of this all in one shot. And we'll talk to you soon.